Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I am your host, Corey C., and I'm here with a very special guest today, Peter Xing. He is management at Transhuman Coin, the co-founder of Transhumanism in Australia, a digital and data solutions lead at KPMG Australia, faculty at Singularity U, an executive of a political party in Australia known as the Science Party of Australia. How are you today, Peter Xing?
That was really good, Corey. Such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you, man. I've never ever interviewed a scientist and a politician together, and that's amazing because most politicians in America are not scientists. It's almost like you're either one or the other. So it's nice to interview someone who has an amalgamation of both of those philosophical viewpoints.
Yeah, you definitely need some evidence-based policy making, is what we call it, in terms of the Science Party guys, because you just look at the way that people try to make some of these ideas. Mm-hmm. They're just purely based on the emotions. It's like, all right, people hating, people loving. Nah, let's go with the hate. The fear stuff is
exactly. It's unfortunate, and it is very unfortunate, and it's seen a lot, especially in America, and hopefully those wounds will mend as time presses on. But besides that, I am very, very intrigued with the project that you are working on, Transhuman Coin. And the reason why is because it seems very, I want to say almost 22nd century. It seems so forward thinking, like it doesn't, in a very good way, does not belong in 2022. And I think it's it's a first of its kind in blockchain. So what exactly is Transhuman Coin, and what is the protocol exactly? Like, what is it exactly?
Oh man, just to understand Transhuman Coin, you're going to understand like what is transhumanism as well. I mean, this is a movement that's been happening since the 70s. You know, when we landed on the moon in the 60s, mm-hmm. everyone had sort of some really awesome visions of the future in the mainstream. So science fiction was very popular, and that's what drove the Marvel comics, and we're seeing that sort of come out in the movies now. Mm-hmm. But that movement started because, this guy by the name of FM 2030, he renamed himself this FM 2030 with a 2030 goal, where he essentially says, humanity is still limited by its biological limitations, whether it's our longevity. So, we have a hard cap or like a level cap at level 122 years. That's the longest person there, a human being that's ever lived. Right now, the oldest person in Japan is actually 119. So fingers crossed, we can breach that threshold. But biologically, we've got that hard cap. And all throughout history, it's with our healthy lifespan has been extending because of better nutrition, better healthcare, better understanding of what helps us live longer and healthier. But biologically, we're limited at this state. And it's because of our genes, our genetic makeup, that actually forces this to, our bodies to deteriorate. It doesn't make sense for you, evolutionary wise, to, essentially take resources away from your offspring, because that stops the sort of continuous cycle of evolution and sort of the divergence and diversity that you can get from genes passing on. So, but now, like, science has actually got to a point where we actually are starting to uncover the mysteries of our genetics and how all our bodies work through science and technology. So first we have to, fully quantify it and measure all these things. So the devices are getting better and better to sort of better monitor ourselves externally, internally. You see these Apple Watch devices and things like that, is getting to a very basic point. And eventually we could actually have devices in our bodies to measure, at the cellular level, everything that's going on. And that includes our brains. So longevity is sort of one vertical of transhumanism. We're essentially trying to extend the healthy human lifespan. And the second vertical is intelligence, because our brains, it's capped inside our skulls, the number of neural connections and the synapses, all of that is limited by our biology. But now science is actually starting to uncover the mysteries of the brain. So trying to understand how the brain works, how what limits it in terms of, say, memory, processing power, deciphering the sort of neural networks in the brain through artificial neural networks is a sort of very basic simplification of how the brain works. And that's where we're getting deep learning and advancements in AI today. So combining all of that with, say, the measurements of devices, say brain-computer interfaces, they're starting to actually develop chips that you can actually decipher the brain. So a company by the name of Neuralink from Elon Musk, you might have seen, he made a demo of a monkey with this chip that's been implanted in the brain, playing Pong. So it's called Monkey Pong, and literally the monkey is thinking about moving the controller to make it go up and down, and it's actually controlling the Pong game, and it's doing a pretty good job because monkeys, you know, they get rewarded by a banana smoothie and they're really happy, so they get rewarded from playing the game, right? So that technology is like heading towards human trials in 2022. So we are here today. So transhumanism is pretty much a 2022 technology that's been developing, I guess, as a movement since the 70s. But, you know, science and technology has got to the point where we're here now today. It is a 22nd century vision, as you can sort of see, because eventually we want to become this transcendent of our human biology to something that's beyond human, right? So converging AI, converging, you know, the nanotechnology, all the hardware, software to upgrade ourselves, really, at the end of the day. So that's the second pillar of intelligence. And then finally, it's about well-being, because, you know, it's nice to live longer and healthier. It's nice to be smarter, but are you really sort of happy and well and sort of living your full life? And, you know, people talk about these concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
And so there's a whole thing that, you know, your basic needs, your food, water, shelter. Then there's things like social acceptance, friendship, love and belonging. And then you get self-actualization eventually. And then there's another pillar that's self-transcendent. You're helping others self-actualize. And that ultimately makes you really sort of fulfilled as a human being. And that gives you purpose and a mission to your life. And so we want to be able to empower individuals with that as well. So no one gets left behind. So you need something like a universal basic income to get your basic needs sorted. That way there's sort of a safety net for everyone on the planet. And then there's also things like, how do you then achieve that purpose? You know, how do you empower people to find ways to, you know, transcend their limitations that stops them from achieving that purpose, whether it's sort of psychological or physical or emotional? There's sort of the well-being that we want to achieve for transhumanism. But all of that being said, that movement, right, has been growing over the last, I guess, 40 years. And so we're now at a point where, how do we empower that community? You know, we're talking about millions of people all around the world that identify as transhumanists. And the likes of Zoltan Isvan recently has made sort of quite a lot of impact in the community. So this guy is a National Geographic journalist, and he sort of applied the media lens to, you know, how do you actually popularize transhumanism? And there's a lot of people that have been doing great work for transhumanism, but he was one of the first to recently to drive the popularism recently. So getting all the news journals, articles, he had like over 200 million views all over the place. Incredible. And so we had all this sort of impact, a lot of eyeballs onto transhumanism, but then it was like, so what? You know, it's like, sure, it's sort of changing some of the mindsets of people understand transhumanism, but at the same time, there's still that stigma around it. So, you know, people don't quite understand what is transhumanism, so they think it's some sort of like crazy cult or something like that, where they're all trying to chip you and, you know, can mind control you and turn you into the Borg or something like that, right? So there's a lot of sort of conspiracy theory side that's sort of always on the sort of fringes. But ultimately, we wanted to empower the community with something that was a financial and economic incentive, because at the end of the day, you know, we talk about the well-being side. We want to empower the community to also be rewarded for being a transhumanist, and that way, people that, you know, were in the crypto space that didn't understand transhumanism, they could opt in through a transhuman coin this way. So if they hold transhuman coin, one of the benefits is that, you know, they, for the reflection mechanism of transhuman coin, they get rewarded with more transhuman coin. And also, as the price rises, because of the adoption of transhuman coin as a utility, whether it's for payments or whether it's sort of as an identifier of transhumanism, the price goes up as more people adopt it. So it's a sort of like a natural financial opt-in to the movement itself. So getting crypto people on board of transhumanism. And at the same time, there's a lot of transhumanists that are learning about cryptocurrencies as a result. So we're seeing crypto adoption increase through transhumanism, the transhuman coin. And we started out in South Africa. So, the African
Okay.
continent is where Dr. Charles Awuzie, the co-founder of Transhuman Coin, started out. And he's a cybersecurity expert and an entrepreneur. So he runs Gemsbot Group, which is, a sort of multifaceted business that, essentially does a lot of e-commerce, social, essentially freelancer.com type marketplaces, helps people essentially earn money. And that way, the token itself, the transhuman coin, can be used essentially to be rewarded as for your services. So we're essentially trying to make transhuman coin a goods and services token that you can actually use as a utility. But yeah, that's a sort of this quick background, because Africa's the crypto adoption, as you know, is pretty crazy, right?
Yes,
Nigeria has 32% plus adoption since I think August.
And they call it the Horn of
year.
Africa, the Giant of Africa. Nigeria is, I believe, either the second or the first most powerful country in Africa, either behind Egypt or in front. And it's one of the most powerful countries in the world, 170 million, something like that.
Yeah, that's right. It's about 200 million people there, and there's crazy adoption because because of the inflation that they're having, but also they've all started mobile first in terms of payments infrastructure. So they never had to have a bank account. They essentially just use their mobiles as a bank account for a lot of the masses. And then when crypto became more popular, they just went crypto first, and sort of transhuman coin enables them to not only protect against inflation, but also it was easy for them to adopt because they knew how to use things like Binance Smart Chain, and they have this thing, with Trust Wallet and Roku and all those sort of things. There's a whole bunch of onboarding processes they're very familiar with, and it's a huge market in Africa, right? So we're trying to that's our sort of foothold to kick off Transhuman Coin. But it's really, it's a transhuman coin is a BEP20 token. So yeah, it's on the Binance Smart Chain. The reflection mechanisms are very vanilla. So, very similar to SafeMoon, where, the reflection 2% of the transaction value goes to the holders. So yeah, they get rewarded. And we have a dedicated fund wallet that receives this 2% that essentially can be donated to transhuman projects. Yeah, so this is actually how we actually empowering the community, but also making an impact in these projects, because we can now fund longevity, intelligence, and well-being projects that support the transhumanism movement.
That's
so meta donation. Yeah, man, it's just like, I feel like we've been doing this for 7 years in Australia, and we finally found like a product market fit, in terms of what we can push in over here as part of the movement. So lifespan.io was one of the first we donated to. They're a crowdfunding longevity projects marketplace. So they actually get a lot of fiat funding already through, to fund projects like, so there's a type of drug called NMN. So this is a precursor to, something that makes your body repair itself better. So this is this is something like understanding how aging works in our body. They've funded a lot of mice projects as well, experiments to make sure that these types of drugs are good for one, it's safe, and two, actually it works. Right? So there's sort of things that they do, and we funded other genetic research companies like FOXG1. It's actually a particular gene that kids could potentially get when they're born, and it actually affects their brain development. So FOXG1, that particular gene, we can actually target research in those areas to find a cure for those FOXG1 genes. So yeah, these are sort of things we're having real impact today, and it's really just really fulfilling to be able to be part of that journey already. So it's just a pleasure of meeting Charles as well.
It's fascinating because in the year 2022, I feel that one thing that I'm very, very, very interested in, that I think what Transhuman Coin is doing that's absolutely incredible in my opinion, is we're in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution with the inception of quantum computing, with blockchain, with artificial intelligence. And what Transhuman Coin is doing is amalgamating blockchain technology, a fourth industrial revolution product, with artificial intelligence, which is a fourth industrial revolution product. I remember reading a book called The War of Internet Governance by, I think her name is Laura Denardis. And she said that there's more technological advancement in the past week than any other century up till the year 1700. So let's, in perspective, in the last week, technological innovation has changed more than 100-year span up until 1700. And I think that's an incredible feat. And I think that this concept, transhumanism, coming to the forefront in 2022 with anti-aging capabilities and excuse me, and and understanding neuroplasticity in the mind. I think that's fascinating to me. So with that being said, now, how does transhuman coin, I know that you hit it a bit in what you said, but how does transhuman coin work? And how does transhuman coin, I guess you could say, help the movement in regards to donations? Like, are there any specific projects that you're excited about in regards to donations?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I really appreciate what you said about the fourth industrial revolution, first of all, as well. I mean, those are exponential technologies, and we teach this at Singularity University because it's not just, you know, a linear progression of 1, 2, 3. It's like 2, 4, 8, right? It's in terms of the growth that it can have. And so these is like the surprise hits businesses and individuals of the change that happens so quickly. And these are the projects that we want to fund. You know, they're growing exponentially because if we accelerate it today, it's actually going to compound that exponential growth down the track. So the way that Transhuman Coin works, so the 2% goes to the existing holders. So if say you buy Transhuman Coin for $1,000, right? So, you know, 2% of that, you know, essentially $20 would go to the existing holders, distributed based on the proportion of that they hold. Another 2% goes to the marketing wallet. So that actually helps promote transhumanism and gets, you know, out into the world. So it really supports the transhuman movement. And 2% goes to the liquidity pool. So in order to be able to buy and sell on the Binance Smart Chain, using Transhuman Coin, you need a liquidity pool to be able to trade it in these automated market makers like PancakeSwap. So we have a dedicated pool on PancakeSwap with a Transhuman Coin and BNB pair. And so that liquidity pool is locked 100%. So you can actually prove that on the Excel that we have as well. So you can see that's like locked indefinitely. And we can also have the liquidity pool grow with every transaction. So there's more and more liquidity for people to buy and sell out of that. And that includes like things like transfer. So it's almost like a VAT. It's a value added tax in Europe, right? So you're pretty much creating your own governance around this with every transaction. And that sort of budget, that 2% that goes to the existing holders, 2% goes to the marketing wallet, and the 2% that goes to the liquidity pool, all of that starts to build up. And we have the fund wallet that it's receiving one of those 2% distributions. That is essentially how we can grow. It's at about 7% of the total market cap at the moment, that fund wallet, and will continue to grow. And that essentially represents something like a 500,000 USD, like sort of budget wallet initially. So it's not that big, but it's not insignificant either. And we're thinking of essentially putting the entire fund up as an incentive prize for these goals around transhumanism. So whether it's longevity, achieving sort of indefinite healthy human lifespan, or essentially enabling brain-computer interfaces that's can be measurable against the mind, and or we're actually implementing a UBI and helping well-being. All of those can be incentive prizes that the entire community, as well as everyone in the world, can participate in and try to win that prize. And that sort of brings, more than a 10x type investment as well throughout the world. We're also funding seed funding projects that are trying to achieve those goals in the meantime. So it does help them along the way before having to achieve their goals. So they can actually get seed funded. And so the donations do this directly, just through, no strings attached donation. We just transfer Transhuman Coin to the parties, and they actually use that to hold on their balance sheet and borrow against as well. There's DeFi lending opportunities that we're implementing so they can actually unlock the liquidity out of that. And so one of the projects is actually called Abby. So this is a new autonomous wheelchair, electronic vehicle wheelchair, EV wheelchair, that's been developed by the company called GoGo Tech. And these guys are going through their series rounds right now. So essentially, it's a person that's run by John de Benedette, and he's actually using a wheelchair himself, so he knows sort of all the ins and outs of it. And this is sort of very sort of transhuman, because you think about wheelchairs as people that are disabled having to use these. We want them to almost not have that disability, but have a feel that it's a super ability by empowering them with technologies like autonomous wheelchairs, because not only can it just help them on a day-to-day to maneuver and for mobility, but also it can be a personal mobility device. This could be the Tesla of wheelchairs, right?
Absolutely,
literally,
absolutely.
just drive you autonomous. It's like sitting in your chair and just going anywhere you want, going up hills and things like that. So the technology is perfect, because the likes of Tesla, you can see the battery and the motors that can power those sort of devices. So yeah, this is one of the ones we've donated to, but also looking to fund as well. And that way we can get a sort of almost a revenue share on the future sale of those wheelchairs in the pipeline. And it's a 500 million market, because there's a lot of people that need wheelchairs all around the world. But also it's a very open, so it's an open sourced design where they can actually integrate things like APIs to control the wheelchair. So you don't, wow. What if you have lock-in syndrome and you can't control the wheelchairs yourself? Like, the autonomy is only good so far as, the AI goes. So you still need some sort of manual intervention, like human in the loop validations with Tesla's autopilot, for example. And they can actually integrate with things like using your eyes to control the directions, so you can have that fidelity of movement. But ultimately, we want to achieve a brain-computer interface integration. So if you think about going left and right, it actually does that as well. Because what if your eyes can't be moved, or you don't want to stretch your eyes too much? But that brain-computer interface stuff is also tricky because of this thing called the elephant problem. For example, if I say, don't think about elephants, what do you think about, right? And so when someone's using their brain to control a wheelchair, if they see a cliff, right, don't think about the cliff. And then, it's really tricky to make sure that there is some sort of limitations to it. So the autonomy of the wheelchair needs to do obstacle avoidance and, danger avoidance, that sort of thing, to stay, in a sort of measurable movement, but also error correction on the brain-computer interfaces. That's where we want the research to be done. And science, Transhuman Coin has a scientific advisory board that sort of, is very well educated on all the different pillars of transhumanism, but also the actual science and evidence-based approaches to assessing these projects. So we have Dr. Avinash Singh, who is leading up brain-computer interfaces at the University of Technology in Sydney. He's just recently won a Google TensorFlow Award for setting the brain-computer interface standards with the IEEE. And they're essentially, designing how like a standard of brain-computer interfaces should be, so that everyone can share the common sort of data points and the algorithms that essentially helps you recognize the brain patterns to decipher it into control systems. So he's leading up our scientific advisory board at Transhuman Coin. And he's going to actually get students at University of Technology in Sydney to design brain-computer interface algorithms for these wheelchairs. So there's a lot of synergies when you have a platform that is the robotics, essentially a robotics platform, when you merge that with the AI component. So it's really exciting because, transhumanism, like you say, the fourth industrial revolution technologies eventually will look at quantum computing as well. But, right now it's all about, with quantum computing, it's great for things like finding the best sort of, say, optimal routes and things like that. And sort of like a lot of different drug discovery components. There's so much opportunity in there, and converging that with AI. But also, with AI robotics that we've got, it's going to be pretty exciting with biotech as well.
This is incredible. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, what this project is aiming to solve and advance in regards to human civilization. And I love how I'm very appreciative when a project kind of puts their money where their mouth is, especially that you're donating a portion to these projects, because I mean, you and I both know that in cryptocurrency, it's very difficult sometimes to trust a project to, I don't know, have integrity, be honest on what they're doing. I'm saying it as nicely as I possibly can. So,
that's right.
Hearing this and knowing that this is these individuals are working with Transhuman Coin, it is incredibly fascinating. It's fascinating to me. And I know that you started bringing up different individuals who are part of the team, but I want to ask, who is part of the team supporting Transhuman Coin? Can you name other people that are part
Yeah.
of the team, please?
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, so myself and Charles, and also so we're part of the dev team. So essentially, the management dev team determines the sort of the roadmap and how we go strategically. And we've also got Elise Sue. So she's actually a developer at Palo IT. And she runs, she's got lots of startup experience as well, running things like a genetic startup, trying to help essentially achieve a $500 price point of doing these whole genome sequencing. Back in the day, it's actually $100 now, which is pretty amazing because first step of the problem is to understand it. And then that's the core management team. And then we have a scientific advisory board. So Dr. Avinash Singh is the chair of that board. We also have Dr. Jose. So he's part of the Singularity University community, futurist as well. So he's based over in Madrid. We also have Dr. Natasha Vidamore, who's, I guess, one of the transhumanist leaders globally. So she's actually, working with the Alcor Life Extension and a whole bunch of other initiatives where she's got about 4 decades of transhumanist leadership under her belt as well, since the very outset. So she was speaking to that FM 2030 person I mentioned at the very beginning. All the way back then. And then we have Dr. Jabu, who's, we have a lot of scientists on the board. So she actually looks after dermatology in South Africa. So there's, I think, skin diseases that we can help treat as well through this sort of science and technology. We have Dr. Zain Ma as well, who's actually, runs chiropractic chains that, people that, if not feeling well physically that need that treatment. He's actually is frustrated by the fact that he can only treat things externally as a chiropractor. He needs to find a cure at the very roots of the aging problem. So that's sort of his mission as part of it. We have Dr. Tolla as well, who's based in the States. So he's actually a practicing medical doctor. And so he's been sort of following transhumanism through Dr. Charles for so many long times, and he essentially tries to find a way through transhumanism to treat his patients better as well. And we also have the US Transhumanist Party. So I understand there is a US Transhumanist Party in New York as well. Art Ramon is part of the USTP, and Zoltan started USTP, but now it's run by Kennedy over in the US. And so he brings a lot of sort of wealth of experience on the policy side, as well as on the technical and transhumanist sort of movement side as well. So I think really our goal has actually just been trying to be as inclusive as possible for those all around the world, but also the transhumanist leaders, to get them all on board for this, and eventually that can actually drive crypto adoption as well, and getting the crypto community on board as well with transhumanism.
Wow. I'm honestly I normally don't say this on podcasts, but I'm blown away by the credentials of this team, and it's far and few between where a team has the credentials to actually allow their project to come to fruition in totality. And this project, from what you're telling me, and the people who are involved, this is I'm kind of at a loss for words. I really am. I really appreciate when I do podcasts with individuals that can amalgamate science, blockchain, and philosophy, because basically speaking, I mean, blockchain is really, it's a technology, but it's a 21st century philosophy in regards to freedom, economic freedom, human freedom. And I think that can indirectly connect to the human freedom of biological, I want to say, stagnation in the human body. And that's
it's very well said.
Thank you. That's really what your team and this project is trying to solve. And I'm really blown away by it, and I'm curious to hear what are your I'm really fascinated by this personally. I really am. What are your upcoming milestones for this project?
Yeah, so we got no, thanks so much, Corey, as well.
Yeah,
And
no problem.
we got the e-commerce store coming out, so that's actually going to have a whole bunch of medical devices. So things like this smartwatch that's coming out. This measures about 6 data points on you, so it's kind of like the Aura Ring, Apple Watch, all
Mhm.
combined. And so that's going to be on the store, and that's going to be purchasable through Transhuman Coin, and that's going to add more liquidity, right, to the project. So this is going to be really great for us to grow. Sahara Skills is also the freelancer.com website. So that's actually going to empower people to earn transhuman coin by doing sort of tasks online as well. So kind of like Airtasker or freelancer.com,
Awesome.
essentially a transhuman coin ability for people to earn and empower themselves to earn transhuman coin by doing these online tasks. It could be also physical as well if they're actually in the local community. So yeah, that's the sort of the two first roadmaps. Our listings on centralized exchanges. We're currently on CoinsBit, but we're looking at Gate.io and
Awesome.
KuCoin and Binance and FTX. So all is sort of on the roadmap, which is when we got listed on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko, that sort of really put us on the map in
That's great.
terms of the adoption. So it was great to sort of have that sort of access to the contacts then to then list on these centralized exchanges. We've already got that Swift blockchain service, which it's an API service that allows any about 250 plus pairs for transhuman coin. So Swift blockchain has been great to facilitate all that. So we're just adding more and more ways to make it easier and easier for people to get into transhuman coin. And there's a whole raft of things we're doing in the NFT space. We had our initial NFT launch as well. It's called the THC NASA. We're actually coming out with transhuman apes as well. We're going to be having
That's
have
awesome.
over
That's really cool.
13,000 holders right now. So we want all of
How
them
many
to have
holders
their
do you
own
have?
ape.
How
Yeah,
many do
so
you have?
13,000 holders
Wow.
at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So we want all of them to have their own ape and, to be able to sort of communicate in the metaverse, to have that as their identity. We're working with Singularity South Africa as well to have a metaverse conference in March. And they're building their own version of the Sandbox and Decentraland, where we'll have a transhuman coin dedicated land as well. So our community
Wow.
members can join and sort of showcase their NFTs and enjoy the sort of the social environments there. And also that conference will be, open to the transhuman coin holders as well to add to that space. So
Wow.
yeah, really excited about what we got coming up. But ultimately, we want to be able to have these virtual labs that do the research to actually accelerate all the transhuman projects, whether it's in the longevity, intelligence, and well-being space. And the way that virtual labs work, essentially, we want to have universities that have their existing physical labs to have a dedicated space for transhuman coin research. So that way we can bring them into the metaverse to represent them, to attract the talent to work on these virtually on the research component, but also have physical scientists to do these experiments to, whether it's drug discovery using AI, whether it's using quantum computing, or whether it's actually doing actual, animal testing, human trials, right? We want to make sure it's ethical and make sure that
Of
everything
course.
sort of aligns with society's considerations. But also that really helps us have a decentralized sort of approach to research. So we're calling these the transhuman decenters, right? So we want to have research from all around the world through whatever political spectrum, through whatever sort of cultural background either, as well,
Mhm.
to participate in these projects, because I think transhumanism is a uniting movement force, right? We
Indeed.
don't care what religion you're from, cultures, background, whatever, political spectrum. We just want to actually extend the healthy human lifespan. We want to enhance our intelligence and well-being and transcend all of these things that are holding us back as a civilization, right?
Incredibly
And
noble
bring them all
goal.
together. Right? But yeah, that's sort of the transhumanism movement, and Transhuman Coin is empowering that movement.
That's amazing. That's an incredibly noble goal. And for those, for our final question, for people like me who live in New York and have to literally go to a gang member to get Bitcoin because I can't buy it. I'm kidding, I wouldn't. But to literally buy cryptocurrency for many of us, including me in New York, it's very difficult for me to use any exchanges with, I don't know, the exception of Coinbase, KuCoin without KYC, CoinX,
Yeah.
Gemini, and maybe some DEX exchanges. How do you how do you buy this cryptocurrency? Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually very interested myself as well.
Yeah, and New York is really tough, right? It's like
Horrible.
we talked about it. It's
It's
too many
horrible. It's the
regulations.
worst state to live
Hopefully,
in the country for crypto, in my opinion. Hands
yeah,
down.
hopefully Eric Adams will make that better. But
I
like
hope
right
so.
now, if you're in New York, yeah, use Swift blockchain. So the
Mm,
best way to use Swift blockchain is go to our website, transhumancoin.finance. And we actually embedded the Swift blockchain API onto the website. So
awesome.
if you have something like Ethereum or any other cryptocurrencies, it's tradable against 250 other pairs. And just select Transhuman Coin and paste in your wallet address. You can swap it there, and it just automatically finds through all the dexes and sexes out there to find liquidity for that exchange. So yeah, that's the best way to do it. If you're looking for a centralized exchange, you have to go on to Coinsbit. This is one of the first centralized exchanges we've listed on. But yeah, we will have KuCoin and Gate.io and FTX and Binance and Coinbase down the track as well. But yeah, that's the quickest way to get it. And if you're still struggling, we can still sort of look at OTC, but we're trying to mitigate that in any case these days. So yeah,
Of course.
it's not very secure.
No, not at all. I completely understand that. Would I be
Yeah.
able to go through MetaMask and use the BSC contract? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, then
That's
I
right.
do that. Then I can do that.
Yeah, it's
That's
the best
fine.
way to do it. Yeah, it's the
Okay.
easiest way.
Awesome.
But yeah, Pancake Swap or the DEXs on Binance Smart Chain. We are looking at bridging to Ethereum as well. But
Awesome.
we're really hoping that ETH 2.0 happens soon because it's the gas fees.
Yeah, you don't want to pay.
Worth
You
it.
don't want to pay. You don't want to take out a mortgage for a transaction.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we wanted to go to Pulse Chain, right? Pulse Chain
Yeah,
is going to be very exciting
very,
because everything will be PTHC, right? It'll be cool to actually
very, very excited for Pulse Chain as well. And if you guys launch on Pulse Chain, I can say from my experience in the Pulse Chain community and the Hex community, because basically they just complement each other.
So
You
cool.
get a lot of positive reactions to that, especially if, and I want to do another podcast after learning about this coin, but if you guys intend on bridging over to Pulse Chain, let me know.
Cool.
And I'm sure we can get a few Pulse Chain members as well that are interested in this project that you actually referred me to this project.
Oh, that'd be so awesome. Yeah, I mean, as a Hexican myself, I've been staking
Nice.
since the start, and so it's been great to see Richard Hart been able to donate and raise the $20+ million for the Sand Foundation, right? That really put you guys on the map with the transhumanists. So that's like the Pulse Chain community is amazing. Yeah, so like really excited about what's in store as well with Pulse X. So yeah, definitely Transhuman Coin on Pulse Chain. That's on the roadmap already. So if you check out our white paper, it's already sort of listed out the networks, and the slides are presented at Transvision in Madrid a couple of months ago. Pulse Chain was right up there. And ETH bridge, depending on how the gas fees and the ETH 2.0 goes.
Of course. No, I totally understand. I understand why, and I'm happy you're a Binance Chain coin, because it's just Ethereum gas fees like a month. It's literally like $100 per transaction. It's you got
so much.
What I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh no, like there's so much innovation that's happening, but it's limited by the gas fees on Ethereum. So it's happening on Avalanche, it's happening, on Polygon Matic, it's happening on Pulse Chain. Like that's where the opportunity is, because you're going to be like bottlenecked otherwise. The awesome stuff I was going to mention was being able to say all those devices that we mentioned that we're going to sell through the e-commerce store, like through the smartwatches. They're all centralized Web 2 services for those like Apple Health type, trying to help you better understand your health. But the Google ones, Web 2 business model is trying to monetize that you as the product, right? So we're working with these Web 3 protocols like Ethereum.io, who are on Elrond at the moment, but essentially it's a project. It's a project that is a data dex. So privately, securely being able to create an NFT of your own data set that you generate that can add on through real-time data, and put that on a data dex to be monetized for the individual in a private and secure way. So like that's the sort of stuff we want to do for the transhumanism movement, because if you don't fully quantify yourself first, you're not going to know what's going to be wrong. Not be able to preempt that and sort of extend your healthy human lifespan through mitigating all these potential diseases, genetic disorders, and other things that will just creep up on you. So the best way to give yourself the opportunity to live longer and healthier is to prevent that sort of stuff. They say indefinite health span is the ultimate goal. So every day that you live and you get more than a day back, they call it longevity escape velocity, so you can keep on living healthily into the future. But you don't want to, some dumb thing to happen, like, cancer or getting hit by a bus. So autonomous vehicles, preventative health, all that stuff is the emerging tech that's going to come into play.
Peter, this was an amazing podcast, and I really, really appreciate the time that you took to come on here, man. Like, I'm very interested in this project. Seriously, like, I want to do this again.
Thank you so much, Corey. Looking forward to our next chat on the pulse chain stuff. That'd be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Peter, for your time.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Thank you.